So, Andor. We've already discussed how good it is, how it's quietly one of the best pieces of television in recent memory, how it manages to take a prequel about a side character from a spin-off and turn it into a slow burn, politically rich, emotionally devastating story about resistance, bureaucracy, identity, and sacrifice. It's one of those TV shows which left me with basically no complaints, no questions. Except, of course, where are the aliens? It was 1977 when George Lucas first introduced us to that galaxy far, far away, filled to the brim with weird, wonderful, and strange creatures. Just think of that cantina scene alone. We have Momar Narden, also known as Hammerhead, a male Ithorian exiled from his homeworld of Ithor as punishment for revealing the agricultural secrets of his species to the Galactic Empire in order to save the planet. We have Hem Dazon, a grouchy Arcona scout who became stranded on Tatooine after spending all his money on jury juice and salt. We've all been there. We even have Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes, a band some refer to as the Beatles of jizz whalers. And there are, of course, countless other aliens, not just in this scene, but throughout the entire saga. Yes, of course, we have the actual important characters, you know, Chewbacca, Yoda, Jabba the Hutt, Admiral Akbar, but what I've always loved just as much are the background weirdos. For me, they're actually one of the best things about Star Wars. Even when they're not doing anything, they just give the world so much texture and personality. You get the sense that the galaxy is just overflowing with life, cultures you'll never fully understand, species with their own histories and hierarchies. And the designs, especially in the original trilogy, with some of the best practical effect usage you'll ever see, all of it just oozes character and diversity. It's part of what makes the universe feel so big and weird and tactile. Like you could reach out and touch it. Like it existed long before the camera got there and would keep existing long after it left. Which is why it's kind of wild that in Andor, a show which also has that incredibly gritty, lived-in vibe, you can go entire episodes without even noticing a single alien. Like, don't get me wrong, there are aliens in this show, but they are far and few between, and there's definitely no main or even side characters of anything other than the hominoid persuasion. So, why is this? And why does it matter? Well, there are a couple of ways to approach that question. The first is to look at it from inside the Star Wars universe, from the logic of the story itself. And I feel like the most basic answer is that this is the Empire we're talking about, an empire at the peak of its powers. An empire who, let's be real, probably have some pretty racist tendencies. Now, the films don't really make a big deal out of this, but I know that in the old EU, the Empire's human-first ideology is a pretty big deal. This is why we rarely see aliens actually working for the Empire, the most famous of which probably being Masa Meda and of course Grand Admiral Thrawn. And even then, Thrawn's entire character arc is basically about how hard he has to work in order to be taken seriously by an institution that barely even tolerates his existence. But no, overall the Empire is human-centric. It's rigid, hierarchical, obsessed with order, and definitely does not champion any sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. So I guess that explains why we don't see aliens working within the Empire throughout Andor, and why they only appear very sparingly and usually in the background in the Coruscant scenes with Mon Mothma, for example. If the Empire doesn't like aliens, then it makes sense that the political center of the galaxy would reflect that exclusion most of all. Hell, you can even wave away the lack of aliens in the Narkina 5 prison arc by simply assuming that the Empire runs separate facilities for different species, and that we just happened to be watching a human prison. But what about all the other places we visit in Andor? Because it's not all Imperial boardrooms and sterile prisons. We spend lots of time in the cracks of the galaxy, the slums, the marketplaces, the criminal underworld. Ferrix, Aldhani, Space Florida. These are places where, in theory, you'd expect to see aliens everywhere. Not in power, but simply living, surviving, hustling. And yet, it's mainly just humans, so why? This show only takes place a few years before the original trilogy, where you can't swing a lightsaber without hitting a guy with tentacles for a mouth. Places like Mos Eisley Cantina, or the Cloud City Incinerator Room, or Jabba's Palace look like Jim Henson fever dreams. Why, in a time when the Empire's grip is supposedly even tighter, does Andor show us a galaxy that somehow feels less alien than the one we see just a few years later? This is where it starts to feel like more than just an in-universe explanation. Because yes, the Empire's xenophobia xenophobia accounts for a lot. But what we're seeing in Andor isn't just the Empire's influence, it's clearly a creative decision from the people making the show. Tony Gilroy, the creator and showrunner of Andor, has addressed the notable scarcity of alien characters in the series, attributing this choice to both narrative focus and practical considerations. He explained that incorporating prominent alien characters would introduce complex issues that might divert attention from the central story. There's already so much politics in the show to begin with, Gilroy stated in an interview, and we're trying to tell an adventure story, really. So adding strong alien characters means that all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of new issues that we have to deal with. Additionally, Gilroy highlighted the logistical challenges of depicting diverse alien species in certain settings, such as the Narkina 5 prison. He humorously noted the complications of accommodating various alien anatomies, remarking, "I don't know how you would work out the bathroom on the floor with 8 different varieties of genitals or whatever." And look, I understand these explanations. Tony Gilroy clearly knows what he is doing with Star Wars, and I'm not going to sit here and claim that the lack of aliens in a TV show actually affects me in any way. He's evidently a guy who really cares about telling human stories, and to be fair, he does that very well in Andor. However, I would just say to Tony that I think he's doing a slight disservice to the aliens of Star Wars, because I do actually think they bring quite a lot of heart and authenticity to the franchise, and therefore should fit with Tony Gilroy's whole philosophy. I mean, the best of Star Wars' alien characters are exactly the kind of grounded, textured presences he seems to value. I mean, let's talk about Yoda for a second. Can we talk about Yoda? I've been dying to talk about Yoda. Sure, he's a little green goblin puppet with weird sentence structure, but it's never distracting. It's actually incredible. He has such weight, such presence, and you fully believe in him because of the writing, Frank Oz's performance, and the design, which all work together to sell you a character who actually exists. He's an alien, yes, but he's also one of the most human characters in the saga. Thoughtful, fallible, wise, but not all-knowing. He's a perfect example of how Star Wars can use non-human characters to explore very human ideas. Even Chewbacca, who can only speak in Wookiee, manages to be one of the most emotionally expressive characters in the series. Because the thing is, realism isn't just about dialogue or cinematography. It's not about muting the colors or dimming the lights. Realism is about texture and attention to detail. It's about making a world feel like it operates with or without you. And in Star Wars, aliens are part of that texture. They're part of the visual language that tells us we're somewhere else, somewhere vast and unknowable, a galaxy far, far away. Their absence, while intentional, creates a subtle sense of sameness, of flatness that doesn't quite match the thematic depth the show is otherwise so committed to. So no, I don't need Tony Gilroy to throw in a bunch of Muppets for fan service in the second season, but I do think that thoughtfully integrating alien characters, giving them roles that actually matter, that speak to the world around them, well, it could enhance the realism he's going for, I think. And looking ahead, Gilroy has indicated that future episodes may include more alien characters. Quote, "We'll probably have more aliens. It's a very strong flavor when it comes in. It's not just a visual flavor, it's a very strong character flavor. You have to deal with it politically." Which is an interesting quote. And I guess we'll have to see where it goes in season 2 of Andor. But until then, or until my next video, thank you for watching, and I will see you around.